Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the distinguished lecture series on energy efficiency. This is the 12th in series, the lecture series which we started on the first Monday of every month in May last year. We have conducted till now 11 lectures, and this is the 12th in series. We are privileged to have Mr. S. Raghupati, Deputy Director General CII, and also Chair of the Asia Pacific Network of World GBC, to be here with us today and deliver the distinguished lecture today. Mr. Raghupati is the Deputy Director General of CII, and he heads all the 9 centers of excellence of CII. He was also a board member of the World Green Building Council. Mr. Raghupati has more than 35 years of experience in energy efficiency management, green buildings, water management, waste management, renewable energy, and has a very special interest and knowledge on urban landscaping. Mr. Raghupati is a globally acclaimed expert on industrial and building energy efficiency. He's an expert in a very unique way, in the sense that he has deep technical knowledge and expertise, coupled with excellent management skills and application, which makes him a very unique person. His leadership and contribution has been immense. The CII Green Business Center, the building was established when he was the head of the CII Godrej GBC. This was the first platinum rated green building in the year 2004. As part of Indian Green Building Council, Mr. Raghupati was instrumental in triggering the national green building movement, leading to 7.75 billion square feet of green building projects all over the country, making India proud by being the second country in the world with the largest green building footprint. Mr. Raghupati is a member of the World GBC right from the very beginning. He was still very recently a member of the board of the World Green Building Council, and he has been associated with it right from the day it was formed. Mr. Raghupati is also a gold medalist in chemical engineering from Annamalai University. Apart from all this, Mr. Raghupati is a very passionate and impactful speaker, capable of communicating very complex concepts in a way which is easy for us to understand. Thank you, SRP, for being here with us today to deliver the lecture. Over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Giri. Thank you, Kiran. Thank you, everybody. First, at the outset, it's a great pleasure, honor to be part of this energy efficiency series, lecture series. It gives me an immense pleasure to be part of you and share with you some of the concepts related to world-class energy efficient companies. And the next 30 to 40 minutes of this presentation will run through the slides. Please permit me to share the slides. Okay. So friends, we are here, and the topic of this presentation is in pursuit of world-class energy efficiency. And that means when some company pursues that, okay, and achieves certain significant amount of progress, they become a world-class energy efficient unit. I think that's the type of progress one can make. And this is a topic which has been very close to our heart for almost 2.5 decades. And my colleagues, Mr. Venkatagiri, Mr. Srinivas, Mr. M. Anand, Kiran Anand, Muthu Cheyan, many others have been very closely involved in this activity. And together, we had done a very detailed study, which I'm going to share in terms of what the type of study that has been made and what type of conclusion it has happened. And this has enabled many companies to pursue this concept and make a significant difference for the company and for the country as a whole. And now, let me get into the heart of this presentation. As you go through this presentation, you'll find this presentation completely different. Here, we are talking about energy efficiency, but believe it or not, when we are talking about world-class energy efficiency, we are talking about fundamental leadership and managerial concepts and attitudes. We are not talking about this technology, that technology, etc. Anyway, technology is an inherent part of this world-class energy efficiency. As you go through these points, you will realize and appreciate the impact. The attitudes makes a difference. Now, you really analyze from an individual perspective or a team. Team is a group of individuals who combine very well. Then an organization or a company is a group of teams, and they combine very well to deliver certain extraordinary performance. In all these things, if you really come to a brass tag level of an individual personality, Okay, ultimately leading to teams and leading to organization. Fundamentally, what drives performance is attitude. Okay, a person has a good attitude, a team has got a good attitude, a company has a good attitude, then that leads to an excellent behavior, a very good behavior. This combination of very good attitude, which drives the behavior, it leads to certain very good actions. And the actions are brilliant and the actions are good. Actions are driven with good intentions. Obviously, what you have is a wonderful performance and a pursuit of excellence. And the company over a period of time becomes nationally and globally competitive. So if you have to look for world-class energy efficiency, and that is the level of performance. When I say world-class, please remember this point. It is best in that class or best in that sector at that point of time. It is only what you call some sort of a synonym for being the best in that activity at that point of time. So that is what we mean middle class. Otherwise, that's a general approach I'm taking. Okay, and that's how the typically world-class approaches are all like that. Having said this, if you really see the root cause of a world-class performance, if you see the root cause, ultimately it boils down to attitude or a good set of attitudes that makes a company great or that makes an individual great, and that one drives world-class performance. So in other words, if you really analyze why certain companies have been world-class, some companies are not so, or they're having challenges, ultimately it might boil down to the attitude which is driving everything. And you will see how the world-class companies differ in attitude. And if they have the very good attitude, actually they would have implemented all the latest technology. You also see a lot of people think the world-class company is only fundamentally based on technology. It is not so. Okay, a company can have the money and buy all the technologies, but still they may not be world-class. They may be messing up with all the technologies. So friends, the main heart of this message is you control the attitude, you work through the attitude, everything happens in the correct place. That's the core message in terms of pursuit of excellence with respect to attitude. With respect to the companies as well as the individuals, this is safe. There is no difference at all in this aspect. It is independent of the sectors also. It can be a building sector, it can be a cement industry, it can be a fertilizer industry, it can be any industry which you want. Ultimately, this is the path to excellence. Now, let me go to a very, very important question. What is the opposite of best? This is a very, very interesting concept, and I would like you to think for a few seconds, and I would like you to answer this one on the chat. Fundamentally, I'm saying, what is the opposite of best? I'm giving you 3 choices. Can you make a guess? Can you put on a chat? What is the world class? What is the opposite of best? Whether A or B or C? I'm passing 20 seconds. I'm getting a lot of answers. Everything is all pointing towards A. Okay. Now one question has come. Okay. A lot of people have answered. Let me get into that one. See, this is an excellent concept that was developed by Jim Collins. And this was a concept that Jim Collins developed in the early 2000s. He has written 2 fantastic books, and he's got several books, out of which I was so impressed with 2 of the books. One is Built to Last. How the companies are designed, built in such a fashion it can operate for 100 years and it will be globally competitive for 100 years. How the company can become from good to great. The greatness is equal to best. So how the companies can become good to great. That is another concept the book he has written, and a beautiful concept. So now if you really see, if you go by the English dictionary, all the points you mentioned, A, B, C, both, all 3 are correct. But from the concept, from the point of Jim Collins, from a philosophical point of view, from a managerial point of view, from a point of view of leadership concept point of view, the opposite of best is good. It might be something different for you suddenly when I bring this answer. But the point I'm trying to say, what Jim Collins is trying to say, is many companies work very hard and they become good. When they become good, they think they achieved very high status and that is the best. And they don't try further. Over a period of time, the goodness will become from good, it will slightly go down, it will go down further and further. Then it will become either worst or average, or they'll be struggling. That means if you have become a very good company, that is the time you should look for more and more opportunities. The question that should be asked if you are a good company is, are you the best? Each one of us, if I'm the company which is a good company, am I the best? What I should do to become the best? That is the type of questions you should ask. So in other words, the enemy of the best is actually good, because people become complacent, people do not put additional efforts, people think that they have already achieved what they wanted to achieve. And they, over a period of time, they drift and they become uncompetitive. This is what happens to companies. This can also happen to, this is what's happening to individuals. It can also happen for teams. It can happen for a group of individuals. It can happen to anybody on earth. And this is what has happened to many good companies. Over a period of time, you don't hear them at all. So the most important point I'm trying to say is, if you are good, okay, but are you the best? You please ask yourself. Please ask yourself. That makes a world of difference. By achieving a good status, the journey has not ended. The journey, in fact, has started the second phase. Okay, now let me go to the critical point. Now, I'm only comparing good companies and the best companies. Best, I'm saying world-class companies for the sake of convenience. Okay. So actually, I'm comparing between good companies and best companies. If you walk into a good company and tomorrow or day after tomorrow you walk into a best company, you will be in fact likely to be confused. Both appear the same. Awareness level for energy conservation is high in both the companies. Equally, you will find that good articulating fellows in both the companies. Both would have achieved something. Both the companies would have achieved significant energy savings. But if you really look deep into it, these world-class companies are unique and different. They are different in terms how they approach the project, how they handle and what type of attitudes they have, what type of philosophies they have. So they are completely different. The only thing which you'll be able to find different in terms of appearance, or if you go by statistics, is that the specific energy consumption of a world-class company will be lowest. May not be lowest in all areas, may be lowest in some areas. Otherwise, they will not find any difference. But the attitude in which the world-class company works, the strategy the world-class company has, the approach the world-class company has is a Himalayan difference. The rest of the presentation, I'm trying to highlight some of the key messages. The intention of CII to share this presentation is to excite each one of the company who is present in this discussion. Each one of you should aspire to be a world class. And CII believes in complete sharing of information. Whatever information you want, our job is to help you. We want more and more world class companies to come. So with this intention, I think CII is going ahead in terms of sharing all the points on this line. Now, let me go into the details. Now, what is the origin of this activity? This concept was developed by CII based study on excellent units. In fact, this study initially started in the year 97. Okay, and this study is and the initial first phase was done in the first 6 years. Somewhere in 2005 or 4, we completed the first phase. At that time, we had about nearly 100 to 200 companies. Today, we have concrete data about 1,400 to 1,500 companies. That includes many companies from abroad. The team of Mr. Venkatagiri and Kiran Anand have seen many of the international companies. They have worked very closely with many of the international companies. If you see the characteristics, whether in India or abroad, anywhere, it is fundamentally same. The good companies behave in the same fashion. The excellent companies behave in the same fashion. So This is a observation, a researched observation, why certain companies have become very good. And we have captured and tested it in many other companies and tested and verified in another best company. And there is a consistency in that approach. So wherever there's a maximum amount of consistency in that approach, we have compiled that information. And that we have mentioned as the characteristics of world-class companies. Okay. So that is how this world-class energy efficient companies concept has come. And this is universal. And this is applicable to all type of industries. You take buildings, the owner of the building behaves in the same fashion. You take services, IT companies, yes, they also have the similar fashion. In other words, it is sector agnostic, independent of sector. It is independent of age of the companies, etc. I will come back to all these points later on. So you will see, and one very interesting thing, what we initially it was done only for energy efficiency. Later on, we found almost 80% of this concept is applicable to green companies. It is applicable to green companies. Then we realize that it is not only applicable, it is also applicable to quality related matters also. The behavior of these companies will be world class in that aspect also. So there is a lot of similarities, energy efficiency, cost management, and as well as green companies also. So there are a lot of similarities in terms of the world class energy efficiency company. If a company is world class in energy efficiency, there are chances are very high. They are very good in cost management and they are very good in terms of green also, very high chances, because the principles are same. Now let me get into the characteristics of world-class energy efficient units. Let me go point by point. First thing is the attitude of a good company versus attitude of a world-class company. Whatever you are seeing in the left side is a good company. Average company, good company, I put it as a good company. And I'm right side, I'm putting it as a world-class company. The degree of goodness might vary, but it is only to highlight the concept, understand the message. We are putting good versus best. Now, to see a typical good company, you ask the managing director, you ask the general manager, they will say, my company is doing very well on energy efficiency, very well on the environment front. All compliance are met. That's how we will talk. For him, if he meets the compliance, is the best company, is a good company. That is how the thinking goes. Moment you go with him with an energy idea, energy saving idea, or a green concept, or a new innovative idea, the first thing he will ask is, what is the cost of implementation? He will not ask whether it is the right thing to do or not. He will ask, what is the cost of implementation? How difficult or easy to implement? This is how a good company behaves. And the degree of comparison may vary from average and good company. Even many of the good companies behave like this. Next, how the world-class company behaves. World-class company, I'm putting on the right-hand side. These companies are beyond compliance. They are in fact 2 generations ahead of the compliance. That means what is the compliance going to come in 2030? They are already meeting the compliance norm right now. So that is the type of approach they have. They are beyond compliance. They do not have to bother about the compliance. They're already best in the class with respect to energy efficiency, environment, and whatever you want to say. Second, moment you come with the proposal or any idea or any thought, the question that will be asked is this the right thing to do? He will not ask about the cost. The question that the world-class company by attitude is this the right thing to do? If it is the right thing to do, we will do it right now. That's all. Don't worry about the cost. The cost, if it is the right thing to do, it's good for the company, it's good for the world, it is good for the overall competitiveness, good for the country. So they will go ahead. That means they will somehow manage the cost. The cost aspect is they have got a capacity of the team. Intrinsically, they can manage the cost. And they are confident the right thing will actually get more benefits for them. So this is how the world-class company behaves in terms of attitude. Ordinary company or a good company will behave like a compliant company. And they will talk about compliance. The world-class company, even if you talk for 3 hours or 4 days, they will never talk about compliance. They will talk about, hey, is this the best? Have I done the best? Is there anything better than this? That is the question they will ask. Is this the right thing to do? That is the question they will ask. So you see the difference in attitude. So tomorrow you want to be a world class, please check your attitude, where your attitude lies on these points. Now let me go to the point number 2. benchmarking versus trend setting. Again, how a good company will behave. Good company, you go to him and tell him this is the idea or this is the approach. Hey, what is the benchmark? What is being done in other companies? Okay, these are the standard questions that come. These are the questions that will be asked by the management of that company. Every employee of that company will be asking this question because the management is asking that question. So the employees will also ask the same question. Okay, so in other words, moment you go with an idea, they will verify whether what other companies have done, whether what is the benchmark, whether the benchmark is to be followed or not. They will go into this type of bureaucratic approaches or this type of defensive approaches. Whereas a world-class company completely behaves differently. The world-class company, they don't bother about benchmarks. They don't bother about the best practices. In fact, they spend a lot of time in defining what is next practices. That is what the Professor C.K. Prahlad has mentioned. Okay, hey, what is the correct thing to do? Are we doing it? We will set the trend. We will not bother about others. We will set the trend. So world-class company always leads by example. And others follow him. Follow them. See, now let me come back to the company which is following the benchmark. Suppose if you are a company following the benchmark, what is the best you can do? Best thing you can do is only your best thing is number 2, number 3, number 4. You will never be world class. You will never be number 1 in that sector. You will never be a leader in that sector. So if you follow benchmarks, the maximum aspiration you can have or theoretically possible is only the second position or third position like that. Nothing will be achieved. Big things will never be achieved. A world class, you see Tendulkar doesn't bother about what the other records are. He just keeps on, his job is to keep on breaking every record. Before retirement, he has set such a big record that is very difficult to others to even emulate. So in other words, the characteristic of world-class personality is he just doesn't bother about benchmarks, doesn't bother about what has happened in the past. He sets his own threats and he becomes a leader and automatically others have to follow. That is what happens in terms of the trend setting. And this is the very, very powerful characteristic of a world-class company. Now, let's go to the third important point in terms of implementation of latest technology. In fact, I would say this is the heart of the entire presentation. You will see the power of a world-class company when you understand this slide very well. And in fact, this is one of the best slides among the slides. So I would request you to have the full attention on this point. Let me first explain what is the characteristic of a good company. You go to a good company and say, this is the new technology that has come. What the first thing that fellow will ask? The supplier goes with the new technology. The person in the black coat is the person who is deciding the technology. He says, where this is proven? Where have you implemented this thing? I would like to have case studies. He needs to see 5 companies were implemented and then only he wants to make a decision. So in other words, like the previous example, this fellow is looking for proven technologies. He doesn't want to. What is the characteristic of this person? He doesn't want to take any risk. Okay. He thinks if you take a risk, many times in some industries like cement technologies and all, you invest about 50 crores or 30 crores or 100 crores in some technology. If the 100 crores technology fails, then the company is in a big difficulty. Same thing happens in many of the chemical companies and fertilizer companies, etc. So there is a defensive mechanism there. Okay. So the caution comes into the picture. Now you'll be asking for case studies. You'll be waiting for others to do, and then you will do it. After 5 companies have done, you will do it. Now you see the world-class company. World-class companies are pioneers in implementation. In fact, their job, they will have a team. They will be actually scouting for new technology that is coming up, and they will be fishing out the new technologies. How they are able to handle new technologies? Because new technologies has a risk. And anything is, you are investing 50 crores, it can make a big difference in terms of profitability if it fails. So it has to have a capacity to do risk. That means one of the characteristics of a world-class company is their ability to take risk. How they take the risk? Because they have an excellent team to verify the risk and ability to de-risk it. You come with a risky technology, they will make a perfect assessment. They have the capacity to de-risk. they have the capacity to de-risk more than the supplier of the technology. I'm telling you. And this is actual example of many cement companies and many chemical companies in India and many engineering companies in India. Even the technology supplier doesn't have that knowledge, whereas the company which is taking the technology and implementing it in its own company, they are able to implement it better. Okay, so in other words, a world-class company is a pioneering implementation. It has got capacity to completely de-risk and is able to minimize the risk, and it makes almost risk equal to zero. Now, let's reflect for some time on this slide. The slide will take about 3 to 5 minutes, but you need to observe a lot of points. How it affects the competitiveness of the world-class company versus good company. Now, suppose if you are a technology supplier, where will you go first? Will you go to a good company or will you go to a world-class company? If you are a technology company which has got a 5 crores investment or 10 crores investment, okay, and that proposal to invest is about 5 to 10 crores, it's a tremendous amount of risk. So will you spend time with the good company or will you spend time with world-class company? Think out for a second. If you go to a good company, you will be asking case studies, which anyway the technology supplier doesn't have. Okay, so it's a non-starter. If you are a good technology supplier, please, heaven's sake, don't waste your time with these companies, good companies. In fact, a good technology company will have a database of who are the good companies, who are the companies who are able to take risk. You can have the past record also. Okay, so never waste time with the good companies. Go to world-class companies because they are going to do it. They are going to definitely implement the technology. Chances are very high that they will implement the technology. Now, what happens when you go to a good company? What happens? Can somebody put only one word? What happens moment the technology supplier goes to a world-class company with a new technology which is going to be implemented for the first time? What happens? Go to the chat and put some words. And only one word. Don't put sentence. Only one word. I'm waiting for some sentences or one words to come. And yeah, something I got. Assessment. Okay. Then anything else? Question. Okay. I'm saying cost. Okay. Cost then becomes a good company. Okay. Past experience then become a good company. It is not a world-class company. Okay. Risk management. Risk management is intrinsic to the world-class company. Okay. It is not the question. What will we discuss with the technology supplier? What will be the first discussion with the technology supplier? I think none of, outcome. Outcome is anyway that people are both agree. Okay, now I think very interesting, lot of messages have come. Let me go ahead with the point. Moment somebody goes with the technology supplier, developer goes to the world-class company, the technology company also knows this is the first time being done, and this company, world-class companies, is taking a lot of risk. The world-class company also knows that this is a technology which is coming for the first time. Both know each other. Both are equally intelligent. You cannot hide in this thing. So what will happen? The world-class company will negotiate very aggressively with the supplier, technology supplier. In other words, if the technology cost is 100 crores or 10 crores, whatever it is, I'm say $1 million. $1 million is roughly equal to 7 crores. Okay, because some international participants are there, so let me use the $1 million phenomena. Suppose that the technology is costing $5 million, the world-class company will negotiate so aggressively, he will in fact ask free of cost. That is what happens to many other technology developers. The first 1 or 2 cases, they have to implement it free of cost. Even a very high technology, also very high risk technology or technology which has been spent a lot of money in developing the technology, maybe first 2 cases land up with us grossly subsidizing the investment. So in other words, a unique technology and a good technology is coming to a world-class company at a throwaway price. Let me articulate like this. The world-class company is getting the new technology at a throwaway price, at 1/10 of the cost, or almost at 0 cost, or at 50% of the cost, depending upon the risk perceived in the technology. Now that means the new technology world-class company has bought at the lowest cost. Okay. Now the company has got the ability to de-risk and they will implement the technology. There are many other world-class companies we have assessed. They have, after 6 months of struggle or 9 months of struggle, they have very successfully implemented the projects. In the world-class companies, I have not come across one example that technology has failed. Okay, now the world-class company has proven the technology. Okay, now instantly the second company also where the technology supplier goes, then that's also a world-class company, is also proven the technology. Now the technology is proven. What happened? For a world-class company, he got the low price of technology at the lowest cost and he got all the benefits of the new technology. Whereas a good company which has not pursued the technology is still paying a higher cost of operation because he has not followed the new technology. He has not got the benefit out of the technology. And now, as far as the supplier is concerned, his technology is proven. Now, what will become the price of the new technology now? The price of the new technology, when he goes to the good company, it will become double. It will become 1.5 times the normal cost because the technology is proven and he has to cover the losses that has happened in good world-class companies. So the prices will be 25% more, 50% more, double. The true assessment of the technology is already done. Now you see the good company lost in 2 battles because he did not have access to the technology, whereas the world-class company got access to all the new technologies. And the world-class company got a technology at the lowest price or nil price, whereas the good company is paying double the price for the same technology. And by the time it comes to the good company, 2 years of benefit the world-class company has already had. So in other words, what I am trying to say is one of the characteristics of world-class company is the world-class company is competitive. By getting a new technology at low price, he becomes competitive. But the good company is paying the same technology at double the price and he loses more competitiveness. So in other words, the world-class companies, the competitiveness further and further accumulates. This is the beauty of this pursuing world-class technologies or new technologies by world-class companies. So in other words, if the company has to be really truly world-class, how they approach new technologies matters a lot. It is not the money that is getting the technology. It is the ability to pursue the new technology and implement it and de-risk it. That makes the difference. That means a world-class company should have an extraordinary team inside which can de-risk it and make it happen. That's it. And they are doing a yeoman service to the country also because the technology gets proven also. Now let me go to the other characteristics. The next characteristic is in terms of monitoring. Every company monitors. Even the good company monitors. They have excellent data generation. Okay. And they think that every data is on control. But the world-class company has got a different approach. They do the same monitoring. They also have the same data. But they have developed what is called the energy scorecard. Like a balance scorecard, this energy scorecard is also there. And the energy scorecard is simple. Okay, it is linking the performance of each department and each individual to energy performance. Okay, this is actual example of one steel company, one steel melting this thing. This is induction furnace. Wherever induction furnace is there is a huge amount of human element. So people shift to shift, huge amount of variation can be there. What they done? Very simple example. Energy scorecard has been done. They linked the energy performance to each session, each shift, and whichever you see the energy scorecard is also linked to key performance indicator of that department, of that employee, and also remuneration of that person. So there is a tremendous amount of incentive also follows to follow the best practices and attention all the time. So when you link everything, automatically there's a maximum attention on the best performance. The slippage, human errors are somewhat minimized. Okay, so this is the characteristic of another world-class company. They are able to link performance, energy performance, environmental performance, quality performance, etc. to the shop floor level. And they measure it and then incentivize it also. So think about these possibilities, plenty of opportunities. This is the typical characteristic of world-class companies. They have done it across every department, every area, every sector. Now, what is the energy conservation culture of a good company versus a world-class company? he can just talk to the energy manager and find out the energy culture and whether that's a company is a ordinary and good company or a world-class company. Just talking to the energy manager. If you, I have in my career of about 30 years, I have dealt with more than 1,000 energy managers, and many of them have cried on my shoulders. And it is one of the toughest jobs in the world. Okay, it is easy to be a manager, but it's very difficult to be an energy manager. And the same thing applies to quality manager. Same thing applies to a green manager also, the one working on sustainability manager. The problem with the energy manager is he is responsible for the energy performance of the company, but the energy is consumed in the operations where he does not have any control. Only the production managers are controlling the energy. But whenever something goes wrong in the company, when the energy consumption goes up, the managing director looks at the energy manager as if he is the villain. And everybody looks at the energy manager that he is the villain. Whereas the fundamental problem lies with the production manager or the persons or the departments where the energy is consumed. Okay, the typical characteristic of energy, that's why many of the energy managers are thrown on defense. Okay, and one of the weak characteristic of energy manager, he'll be going and meeting people and asking for energy saving proposals, etc. He will try to do everything by himself. So talk to the energy manager, and if he has this type of characteristics, that company is a average to good company. That's all. It is not a world-class company. Whereas in a world-class company, energy manager is a perfect catalyst. He is a person who sits in his chair and gets his job done, believe it or not. There are several energy managers in my experience have struggled, and there are few energy managers who become general manager of the factory. They become general manager of the thing. They have become managing director of the company also. And these are the world-class energy managers. And the true world-class energy managers are pure facilitators. They take the overall responsibility, but they enable each department. They go and tell, hey, have you seen this best practice in other companies? That company is doing pretty well. Whereas you don't seem to be understanding, you are not considered this opportunity at all. Why don't you go to that company and see for that yourself? You might have a better idea. So you will see the idea very subtly. He will not tell that you are wrong. Hey, this is what it is. You do not know what you are doing. That type of arguments will never come with the energy manager. You will subtly place the idea. Make the other person realize that it is his responsibility to make a difference. So in this company, and you will also, energy manager is so strong, since he has already done the performance energy scorecard and all, the manager's salary, manager's growth is all dependent on the energy performance. So they will come running to the energy manager. Hey, you please give me proposals here. You give me ideas so that I will show that I will get a better performance for my department. So the first case, a good company, the energy manager is running around. In this second case of world-class company, the other managers are running around the energy manager. So where do you want? Do you want to be a world-class energy manager? Yes, this is a clue. The same thing is applicable to absolutely applicable to all aspects of my life. Wherever the catalytic job, same thing is applicable to quality movement. Same thing is applicable to sustainability movement. So how do you position yourself? Suppose you are an energy manager. Today you should have a very deep insight. Today you have, my goodness, am I doing the right thing? Am I asking the right question? And this presentation is fully available to you. And I'm also available. My colleagues Magadagiri and Kiran Anand will always help you. Our job is that India must be world class in terms of energy efficiency. That is our only aim. So it is up to you to make the world of difference. Let me go to the next point. How the ENCON activity is pursued in a good company, how the ENCON activity is pursued in a world-class company. See, the good company or an average company will always talk about somebody coming, managing director comes and tells you do the energy. The cost is very high. Energy cost has gone up. The electricity bill has gone up. Your coal price has gone up. You do the energy conservation. Okay, and the government says mandatory audit. So you do the energy audit. That is the characteristic of an ordinary or good company. Whereas world-class company, they are least bothered about anything. Whether you like it or not, there is always some 25 fellows working on the company. They have talked to every best person in the world for ideas. And it is always an ongoing activity. And the top management, it will be part of that review agenda. It will be, where are you with respect to energy consumption parameters, how each department is coming down, what is the best in the world, are you the best? These are the questions that will be asked in the board. Okay, now the last point. the resource allocation. This is a very, very important point that is mentioned here. That's a beautiful point. Another interesting point. This is a powerful, powerful characteristic of a world-class company. Okay. What happens when you do the energy conservation idea? You develop energy conservation idea. The investment requires say $500,000 or some say 2 crores, 3 crores of investment required. The fellow develops the proposal. He goes and develops into a very detailed proposal, goes to management, presents it. Okay, and the management asks hundreds of questions, and this type of debate and exchanges happen. It goes on for 6 months, 9 months. And by the time the people get frustrated, general manager changes, management changes, or something happens, people conveniently forget the proposal. And again, next year, somebody starts the same thing. This is what happens in good companies and average companies. Whereas in a world-class company, it is completely different. We have seen some world-class companies. In a world-class company, the general manager or the department manager is empowered. You have a good proposal, you take the risk and implement. If as long as the criteria of 1.5 years payback or 2 years payback or 3 years payback, whatever the norm of the company at that point of time, if it is accepted, fine, just go ahead. You take the risk. We will support you. And no question, no approval is required. So in this case, the money is already allotted. Money is not allotted means it is not lying in the bank. Moment the proposal is identified by the general manager of that department and the general manager of that area, of that sector or whatever you call the department manager decides straight away it goes for implementation. So in other words, there's an upfront allocation of resources. The beauty of a world-class company is the resources in the ordinary companies and good companies, the ideas are waiting for money. In the world-class company, resources are waiting for ideas. That is the beauty of a world-class company. Okay, and this is a perfect example of Reliance, ITC. I can give you about 20, 30 companies who have done it. And they have implemented every aspect. Hey, you got idea, just go ahead and go. Maybe out of 10 ideas, 2 or 3 might fail, no problem. Okay, and maybe it may not match the 2 years payback period, but it will be done. Then another very interesting thing, this is about some of the world-class companies. A good company shares within the department the information. The moment we find a good idea, something which says say $10,000, something which says say 2 lakh rupees, one good idea is identified and it is successfully implemented. In a good company, they share within the department, etc., or maximum they share within the company. In a world-class company, Coca-Cola, you take the Coca-Cola or Philips, they got thousands of units across the country, across the globe. Moment a new idea is identified, within 24 hours, that idea is messaged by email to everybody with complete details. There are identical units across the globe. One idea in one place will be only $10,000, but there are 1,000 companies. 1,000 into 10,000 is running to $1 million. The benefits are captured in a fraction of a second. So this is another characteristic of a world-class company. Moment you get an idea, train every people, develop every people, and give it to everybody. And that's how they achieve the global competitiveness. Let me go to the last portion of the presentation. There are some people, misnomers in the world-class energy efficiency. They have some assumptions. Which are the wrong assumptions? First thing is, people believe that world-class energy efficiency can be done on latest plants. It's a total misnomer. Even a very inefficient old plant can become, we have seen one 30-year-old plant, over a period of time, it has become world-class. Maybe old is gold. Okay, it is independent of this. Even those companies can upgrade themselves in technology. So it is the size of the plant or it is not the age of the plant, doesn't matter. What matters is pure attitude, pure willpower that I will pursue world class. That's all. Period. Second thing is, it is limited to companies which are already good. It is not so. Some companies can be inefficient to start with, and they can build world-class performance over a period of time. Even though today you are inefficient when compared to the rest of the world or rest of the companies in that sector, you can become a world of difference. We have seen a lot of chemical companies, cement companies, engineering companies, buildings. Many buildings are completely overnight, they have transformed themselves. Within say 3 years, 5 years. So this world class is a journey somewhere ranging from, depending on the complexity of the unit, it varies from 3 to 10 years. Average will be around 5 years. From a very poor performance to world-class performance, it takes about 5 to 7 years, typically. And it requires tremendous amount of efforts in that direction. You see, another lot of people think that world-class is expensive. And this is the actual figure of the buildings. When you say platinum building is a world-class building, the cost initially about, say, 2003, it was 18%. Today, we are talking about the platinum building is only 1%. So actually the world class is, there is some initial investment because you need to implement technologies, you need to have good ideas, you need to invest. And that investment has an attractive payback. The typical payback periods can be anywhere between 6 months to 3 years. Not a problem. Even 5 years, some good technologies can take 5 years also, but it can transform the technologies. See, what the key point I'm trying to say is, if the company is not world class, it is more costly. More costly if you are not world class. Please, you will not become globally competitive if you are not world class. That means every year you are spending money in terms of higher energy consumption, higher inefficient activities, and for example, higher emissions. So many things happen. So it is actually more costly not being a world class. To be globally competitive, it's a fundamental approach is to pursue world class levels. And when I say world class levels, what I mean is best in that class. And best in the class at that point of time. It is not that all the time. Okay, tomorrow what I'm world class, tomorrow somebody can be world class. Then it's an opportunity for the previous world class companies further compete. Friends, to become world class, what is really required is a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift. It is purely in the mind. Don't waste your time. Don't go look elsewhere. You please only talk about only yourself. Are you willing to become world class? If you are ready, talk to your team, and the company should decide, and you accept it as a challenge and pursue this one. And rest will be history, and you will become world class. So all the best to you. Thank you very much, and I would be delighted to answer all your queries.
Thanks, SRP. Thank you very much for your address. To all the participants, if you have a question, please post it in the Q&A window. We will post it to Mr. Raghupati and get his response. SRP, there are a few questions which have already come in. I'll read them out and maybe seek a request for your response. The first question that has come is, the world-class energy efficiency concept is very interesting, but in your experience, should it be a bottom-up approach or should it be driven by the top management? Where will the first initiative come from and where should it be driven?
See, actually, there is both. Wherever you start, it doesn't matter. Always remember that the energy manager, he triggers everything. Okay, so if energy manager triggers everything, then he can get the management to accept also. So it is a combination of both top management as well as the leader down the line or people down the line. So both combinations we have seen in the past, and both can work wonders. But once the concept of world-class energy efficiency or concept of world-class company picks up, within a matter of say 6 months, both the top management and all the team gets aligned. Only the first step of once the alignment happens, then automatically the rest is history. Rest is the implementation takes place, the financial sanctions take place, everything flows automatically. So wherever you start, plus most important thing is please start somewhere and do it. That's all.
Okay. SRP, the second question is, can a company still be world-class in terms of practices, even if they don't have the best efficiency numbers today?
See, it is possible. It is possible. World-class is a journey. They may not be the best in terms of all the parameters. They might have achieved certain excellent performance in certain departments. They may achieve the lowest numbers in certain areas. The intention is to have the lowest specific energy consumption across the entire company and have it in department wise also. That is the intention. Maybe in the initial portion of the journey, okay, we might, the things might be, the statistical indication might be different. But over a period of time, when the company becomes truly world-class and it becomes a leader in that sector, the top 10 companies in the sector, definitely the numbers will also match. Okay, and of course, the effort comes first, the numbers come second. Okay, and we don't pursue the numbers, we pursue what is best. The question to be asked is what is best. And then if you pursue what is best, automatically numbers follow. Okay, so that's the message I would like to leave it actually.
Sir, there is one question on culture. The question goes like this: what are the steps, in your opinion, to be taken to change the culture within the organization? In your experience, what are the key steps that someone should take to bring about this change in the mindset of people to approach world-class energy efficiency?
See, the first major challenge in all the world-class experiences, okay, world-class sometimes is seen as some sort of a branding exercise or something. We are not so. We are now aspiring to be best in that sector. We want to be the my factory or my company, my organization should be the best. Okay, that's the approach we are trying to take. So first thing is, as I said earlier, the last finishing slide is the group of individuals and the management or the leaders in the company have to make a decision. Hey, come what may, I will pursue the best. My organization should be one of the best companies in India. And from the point of view of sustainability or from the point of view competitiveness, where you start, it doesn't matter. Yeah, willpower must be there to say that, to articulate internally, yes, we will pursue world class. See, many times people do not know what is exactly world class. Okay, one has to learn. One has to really go and discuss with 20 people. One has to go and talk to some other good companies who have done it. See, for example, you and Giri have done extraordinary work in cement industry. We found that Indian cement industry is very close to world class levels, or the leaders in the world. Why? Because within the cement industry, there is a complete transfer of information. The people share what is the performance of one company is immediately known to other company. Though they compete for the price of 1 rupee per bag in external market, but internally they share, they collaborate. You see some other group of sectors, chemical industries, pharmaceutical industries, they don't share that much. With the result, they become obsolete, or they are not that world class. Okay, somebody does a new technology, he becomes world class. Whereas in the case of cement industry, there is a complete sharing of information and there's a motivation to perform better. Each one learns from each other. Each one helps each other. As a country as a whole, we have progressed. So that is one of the characteristics of world class. They share among themselves. And they have tremendous pride in becoming that a very superior performer. Okay, and the pride leads to further actions. And that pride leads to consistency of actions. That consistency actions leads to consistency and performance. And the figures are lowest for a period of say 5 years, 7 years, like that. So this is what my humble request is. You make a decision, you pursue. That's all.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. The next question is, sir, how do you measure or assess whether a company is following the approach of world-class energy efficiency that you just highlighted? What are the indicators that you see? And how can they internally assess whether they are following all the concepts, or how can they take it beyond?
See, one important point. It's a lovely question you asked, Kiran. Whoever has asked the question from the audience, I must thank them for the lovely question. And this particular point is, please remember, every company may not be world class in all the parameters. It is somewhat an impossible target. That is not the aspiration. That is not everything cannot be brilliant. If it happens, very good. But the fundamental point is, okay, hey, this is the best in this activity. That's the best in the other activity. Like that, one has to really see. Okay. The first thing is that the willpower and an aspiration to learn something from others and put it in the implementation aspect. When you start implementation, start measuring whether the things are coming down, energy consumption is coming down, is the performance improving, etc. Okay, many times we have found that the lowest specific energy consumption is not because of technology, it is also because of the effective capacity utilization. That is also an interesting point. So how do you make sure that you don't lose the operations, etc.? How do you make sure the runnability of the plant is maintained? That also makes a world of difference. So in other words, one has to really see in detail. There must be a team must be formed internally. Okay, and they should go into the details. That team should visit several organizations outside the company. They can be in the same sector. It can be different sectors. Okay, CA can help them in terms of linking them to world-class companies and then learn from them. And the rest is the understanding, assimilating the information, putting certain priorities, and getting the jobs done. That's what I would like to recommend. And it might vary slightly from case to case, but this is the general approach.
SRP, the next question is this concept only relevant to good companies already with lot of capabilities and resources, or even companies who are still lower on the rank pursue this effort to become a world-class energy efficient company? Is it limited to good companies, or can any company pursue these initiatives?
See, in my opinion, based on the experience we had seen in several, we have a data of 1,400 companies. If they are already good, they have a better start. Okay, it is running about in a 100-meter dash. You already have a 5-meter ahead of the race. Okay, but anyway, even for an average company, or even from a company which is low tech, which is having not invested so far on technologies, they can have a complete transformation. So it is independent. You might start with a -10, you might start with +10, but wherever to ultimately to go to 100, both are equally possible. Both are definitely they can achieve. What is really required is the determination that it is in my company's interest that I should pursue. That is all that is required. And the rest, the technology is known, technology is available. As we discussed earlier on, it is not the question of investing the technology. It is the question of how to attract the technology players. How do we manage the technology? What is the resources you have to manage the technology? How to de-risk new technologies? That is what matters. Okay. Yes, yes, money can get you to access to new technologies. Okay, but the ability to manage technology, the ability to implement and pursue new technologies, that matters a lot. Yeah.
SRP, another interesting question. Someone has written, I'm convinced that my company can become world class, but how do I get others also to agree that this is possible? He's writing, I'm not the leader or the CEO of the organization. I'm only in the middle level management. How can I get everybody agree on this idea and take them along?
Yes, the first step is somehow create awareness about this concept. Okay, the first step in all the problems are quality, energy efficiency, environmental problems is lack of awareness. Everybody thinks that he or she is good. Only when come to reality, then how bad they are, how good they are, they will know. Okay, the first is to internally create the awareness. The first job of a good marketing person is to create a sense of need. Nobody can be forced to buy the product, okay, or buy the service or buy this concept. The person who's a company, I personally believe every good company, once they understand what is the benefit of this exercise, they will pursue. So first is create awareness, create the need within the company, create a culture within the company that they are always trying for the best. Rest will follow automatically. The company will become world class in a matter of 2 years or 3, or will work towards world class in a period of 2 to 3 years.
Thanks, SRP. The next question is, can the concepts of world-class energy efficiency be extended to all other aspects of environmental sustainability?
There is almost, I would say, 90 to 100% match. Okay, it may be, wherever the concepts are somewhat managerial oriented, technical oriented. In my opinion, the world-class green companies we have studied, more or less identical. All sustainability companies and concept, it is more or less applicable. Almost 80, it will also have an 80% match on quality parameters also. Company is working on total productive maintenance. This will more or less match. Okay, a company pursuing innovation. Okay, this might match. Okay, so in other words, I realize that more and more I see different subjects. Ultimately, the ability to of the management, on the leaders in the company, and the ability of the individuals to see the opportunity and see the correct approach and pursue that approach. That's what matters. So I think the sky is the limit. And this should see what I'm saying is we only present about 8 characteristics. There might be some other characteristics also. Okay, there are many other characteristics. Okay, we have not captured it in a way that it becomes a very long exercise. But what I'm trying to say is, when somebody goes into details, the mind gets triggered, the mind gets motivated, or the person gets motivated. And once the person gets motivated and the trigger happens, then nothing can stop that person. Okay, and this is how we have seen many companies. We have made this presentation to many companies. They have many of the cement companies have become world class, and many of the paper companies have performed world class performance. Many of the engineering companies have performed world class. We have, as a team, we had worked with many of the companies. The companies might have initially started in average fashion, but within a matter of 3 to 5 years, there is the transformation. First transformation happens in the team. The second transformation happens on the site. First happens in the mind of the people. Then the ultimate transformation happens at the site. Then ultimate transformation happens in the balance sheet. Okay, and also on the specific energy consumption figures.
There are a whole lot of other questions coming up, SRP, but I think it is time we can continue engaging on the participants to look at, because there were some questions in terms of how can CII help organizations become world class. There are some questions in terms of can CII work with SMEs to make them world class companies. So we'll continue engaging with the participants. But SRP, I think I'll leave it to you to have your last.
My humble request is all of us will answer all the points that are raised, questions that have been raised.
Yes.
Some questions are not answered by me. I apologize because of want of time. But we would be honored, we'd be delighted to share all the answers. Please give us about 7 to 10 days time. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. And we have the database of all the participants who are there. So we will try to answer as many questions as possible. And it will also help us if you can send an email on this question. Whatever question you have posed, you just cut and paste it to an email, then it is easy for us to delegate and answer the questions more precisely and perfectly, as much as possible. And once again, let me thank each one of you for your patient listening. I'm sure, you would have enjoyed the discussions, and our aspiration, our intention within CII is that your company should be a world-class company. And as long as you are convinced, and you can be the first catalyst, you can be the energy manager who is a catalyst who can make the difference. So all the best to you, and we are with you. And we want more world-class companies in India. Thank you very much. Thanks for your patient listening. And thanks for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To all the participants, the recording of this session will be made available over email. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks, SRP, for your lecture today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.